Since the very beginning of Anarchy servers, players have gathered in clans or factions to survive. With factions comes the ability to build huge bases, massive auto farms, and a sense of belonging in the community. But also politics, wars, and betrayals. Today we'll be taking a look at one of the most historic old factions on Purity Vanilla. Although having dissolved over a year ago, it still maintains a lasting legacy that impacts the server to this day. This is the story of buildguild. On the 23rd of May 2019, Frazzle53 joined the server for the first time. You guys know Frazzle, he's the one who smells like really bad. Frazzle spent a few months basing with some IRL friends who joined him on the server, in a base that would become known as Ghost Town or BG1, building himself an impressively large castle for what was essentially his first build on the server. His friends slowly left the server one by one, but Frazzle stayed. In July of 2019, Frazzle was the only one left at the base. Lonely, he decided to invite a friend, FiberCZ, to join him. After an ironic conversation with Master's Chief, where they would proclaim themselves as the best builders on the server, they would become known as buildguild. After a week of basing at BG1 together, two members wasn't cutting it. They decided to invite resident shit-talker Lamatata, who many of you may know today as Jamatuta, but don't tell him I told you that. He had the genius, entrepreneurial idea of starting the Rat Fedora company, in which you could buy shares by investing with diamonds. This high IQ business venture would not be rivaled until the advent of Buckynomics in 2021, but that's a story for another day. Lama would travel to BG1 to collect his diamonds in person, and decided to stay. After Lama would come Tesco Bossman, Snakeob, and then the seed crack. Tip Top Bob was publicly revealed to have cracked the world seed on August 27, 2019. The seed would be reset not long after, with any unloaded chunks taking part. This presented a major problem for many groups in the server. There would be trails of broken chunk borders leading directly to their bases. The BG1 crew decided to pack up and cut their losses, leaving BG1 as a real ghost town. It would later be griefed by Daddy Satan and NJZJ, but this was several months after the members departed. The group decided to do a spawn base named N3E3 for its coordinates, North 3k, East 3k, a name inspired by a FitMC video because Frazzle is unoriginal. Also, he smells like really terrible. As well as the BG OGs, Eric, Boone, and the server owner Penguin himself based here for a short time. It was only intended to be a temporary base, and temporary it was. After 6 days, Frazzle was jokingly made an honorary member of the Varden, one of the largest factions at the time. Lama, Snakeob, Eric and Tesco all had serious issues with Varden and thus departed N3E3 to start what would become one of the biggest building groups the server has ever seen, the Dung Beetles. Fibrous and Frazzle decided to stick together after losing more than half their members and go back to BG's roots. Their next base would become one of the most expansive and iconic in Purity's history. Frazzle and Fibrous took a BG2 700k from spawn, the cords on the screen, and started recruitment immediately. They invited iCode Viper, Saya Dragon, Quantum, and Golden Cookie 420! Shortly followed by Zero Tolerance and Two Wheel Ted. They quickly became a big name in the community, with players requesting to join frequently. I gotta say, I visited this place about half a year ago, and man, it was one of the coolest ungriefed bases I've ever visited. Many base members took to building their own little towns with their own building styles and palettes. It creates this cool little dynamic where the base is almost like its own little country, rather than a singular community. The standout build in my opinion is this crazy looking modern build by Quantum. I have no idea how he made it, but god damn I just love looking at it. There's also Frazzle's abandoned chapel, Code's dung mug, and below the surface, Lolling's Nchardak, which features a shopping district where members would start small shops for trading. And there's also a graveyard commenting on many dead players and places. The base even featured the 1-year anniversary map art. The BG guys had a hell of a time here, often pranking each other and making silly videos out of them, such as this one where Ted gets dunked. Unfortunately, this didn't last forever. By January of 2020, many players including Frazzle himself had become burnt out of Purity, or of BG in general. Most of the remaining players, such as iCode Viper and Golden Cookie, moved on to Invicta, another building group which would rival Dung Beetles for quite some time. BG2 was left there, receiving several visitors over 2 years until it was griefed by an anonymous source. On Purity, 2 years is an extremely long time for a base to last. The vast majority of group bases don't even make it to the 6-month mark. If you'd like to visit the ruins, the coords are on screen. Frazzle returned a few months later to find BG2 abandoned and dead. He contacted Jamatuta, who was excited to build with him again, and they chose to start a new base, BG3. This base was short-lived. It didn't get griefed or anything, but it suffered from a severe player deficit and a lack of activity from the members. Fibrous and Popcat were also invited, but they didn't do much. Here it is. Although there isn't much, it's actually quite a nice seaside village. For something done by just 2 players, they clearly started with a good level of motivation, but unfortunately it just wasn't meant to be. That brings us to the present. Frazzle eventually, reluctantly, moved on to join DB, where he's still inactive and still needs a shower. As such, it can be said that buildguild is the father faction of both DB and Invicta, known these days as old fag powerhouses amongst the community. Although BG never got into any major conflicts, and somehow altogether avoided the problems with Varden and Valhalla, its builders have gone on to be considered some of Purity's best. The mark they've left on the server isn't always obvious, but it's there, in the ruins of Glaciergrad or the now burned halls of Dungmark. Keep an eye out yourself. Next time you're exploring or base hunting, you might just find a little trace of buildguild, hidden away.